This is week 14 of investing every week in the stock market. I started this series to document my journey in the stock market and in the hopes that someone might get motivated to start investing or stay consistent with their investment journey. This week we have $100 to invest, but the markets are in fact down. The Nasdaq is down 3%, the S&P 500 is down 1.5%. I don't know if I should invest because I don't know, my money might evaporate. With that being said, my first buy is going to be in the S&P 500 as always. Through this ETF, USSL, the S&P 500 is an index that tracks the 500 biggest companies in the United States of America. It has returned 10% on average over the last 40 years and even more now. I make sure I buy the S&P 500 and sometimes with leverage. Leverage adds on to the returns. If the S&P 500 goes up by 10%, this ETF, USSL, is going to go up by 12.5% since it is 25% leverage. I think for a long-term investor like myself, there is no better index than the S&P 500 since it is extremely diversified, it holds all industries, and it holds the biggest companies in the world making and generating the most value. So I'll place an order for one share of USSL, queue the order, and done. My next buy is going to be in QQQL. This is an ETF tracking the Nasdaq 100 with leverage. The Nasdaq 100, much like the S&P 500, tracks the 100 of the biggest companies in the United States of America. If tech is not your jam, you might want to stay away from this ETF since it is heavily concentrated in technology. It just so happens over the last few decades, tech companies have generated the most value. I think personally tech is going to keep on generating value since all forward-looking industries have technological elements. If you look at AI, if you look at data, autonomous vehicles, robotics, literally anything under the sun that maybe will make the human race better is going to have technology in it, which is why I'm going to buy one share of QQQL with that modest 25% leverage since I do believe in the long-term potential of the Nasdaq 100. So one share of QQQL, queue the order, and done. My next buy is going to be in a leverage all equity ETF. Leverage, we know what it does. This ETF, HQL, is also 25% leverage. What does all equity mean? All equity means this holds not just the US and Canadian markets, this also holds international markets. Something you might notice about my portfolio is that it's heavily concentrated in North America. I do love North American companies, but I do want to believe that the international market also has some growth to offer. Developing markets like Southeast Asia have done tremendously well when it comes to potential GDP output, as well as European markets do have some growth potential as well, which is why I buy HEQL. The leverage adds on to the returns as well, and I do also partake in the US market and Canadian market at the same time. It's a win-win situation. So one share of HEQL, queue the order, and done. My next buy is going to be in HYLD. This is a covered call ETF tracking the S&P 500. Covered calls are extremely controversial online. People fight a lot, and I mean a lot online about if covered calls are good or not. I like covered call ETFs because they keep me motivated to invest. Covered calls sacrifice some long-term potential growth to give you income now. The yields for these ETFs are much higher at 10 to 12% compared to 1 to 3% for a regular S&P 500 or TSX 60 ETF. I don't invest a lot of money in covered calls. As you can see, out of $100 something, I'm only investing $14 in a covered call ETF, but I want to see that dividend snowball growing because that is literally what keeps me motivated to invest. My portfolio has a decent return and adding dividends onto that makes me a very happy guy. So one share of HYLD, queue the order, and done. So that's it. Those were my buys for this week. As you saw, not that much money to invest. I have made some big purchases in my other life, which I do have. I do have a life outside of looking at this camera, unfortunately. That meant that I don't have more than $100 to invest for this week, but the entire point of this video series is to be transparent and be realistic of what an average investor's journey looks like in the stock market. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and the subscribe button. Every subscriber matters and helps get this video to the right people. Also interested in money, finance, and learning how to save and invest. I'll see you next week.